Okay, so we want to do tileable textures so we can do walls and have all that detail, um, but not reveal to the audience that we're doing all that detail. So there's a few simple tools to allow us to make tileable textures. There's a few things we have to do before we're ready to build our textures, though, and that is picking good good photos to use for our tileable textures. So it's a matter of taking photos on that are perpendicular to the surface plane. Okay, so this is at a bit of an angle. It's just some sand, but it had a neat pattern, so I photographed it. So, I wasn't able to get directly over it. Can I correct for most of that in Photoshop? Sure, I can use the distort and maybe get something useful out of this area here. If we look at this roof, it's all at an angle going up, but I could still probably grab an interesting texture there, or maybe just grab the yellow bits for a different texture and layer it in over a red brick or layer it in over some metal or concrete. So that's part of how you have to think about stuff. So just popping through a few of these here. So you want to shoot things on gray days, so that you have very little of these directional shadows. Can I get a decent texture out of this stone? Is it the uniqueness of the surface, is that going to show up without the highlight and shadow? That's a good question. Something like this. I can grab a nice texture, maybe out of here, maybe in there, but I got to be careful where the shadow starts coming in. Okay, and so that might make it hard to get it so it repeats well. Interesting bit of research, some dripping and that sort of stuff happening there. So maybe that one I took more for just ideas. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, this one's pretty good. We got some really dark areas. It's pretty uniform. It's pretty even. There's not much shading. There's a little bit there, but very little. So that could tile very nicely. This one could be borderline. It's not my cast shadows. It's a gray day. You can see a little sky up there. Maybe just chop in. The problem here is we have a lot of distinctive stuff, so we're going to really see that stone again and again and again. So you do have to sort of look for fairly bland things. Like this guy, I can probably use a bit here or maybe a bit from there. And yeah, so if we look at this detail, you see this was shot not for texturing purposes. This was just, hey, here's something interesting. Let me take a picture of it. And as you see, we have these deep shadows here. Okay, so when we're shooting for textures, we want to avoid these shadows because we want to add those in our bump map. We want to add those with our lighting, either in Maya and then cook it out into the texture, or over in Unity, we want to have the lights do the shading and that sort of information. All right, so let me just pick one of these guys to attempt doing a tileable texture with. Let's see, which is a good one. I've already worked on that one before. Yeah, this should do pretty well. So I'm going to pop this guy into Photoshop. Okay. All right, and I will drag out while holding Shift. I'll drag out a square. Okay, so I'm going to need a square texture on this. Go, okay, hey, I sort of like this batch in here. All right, so there I have a little bit of shadow. I don't know if that bugs me or not. Let's sort of line that up about there. That seems pretty good. And okay, so I'm just going to copy, do new, and paste that in do a Command E to flatten that out. So, all right, so there's my basic texture. Oops, come on. Okay, so that's my starting point. And if I can, I'm going to change the image size of it. Actually, should I wait on that? Yeah, I'm going to wait a little bit on that. Okay, because we're going to crunch this to 512. All right, so here's the trick. Is to do this, we're going to go to Filter, Other, and Offset. Yeah, I know, that's real intuitive. So Filter, Other, and Offset. And so I'm going to say, hey, offset it, maybe 100 by 120. Okay, so that's offset it in both directions a little bit. And maybe I can go a little bit further. And good. Okay, so there I have a nice, it's nicely visible where my tiling happens to be. Okay, and so now I have several choices. I can clone out some of these guys. Maybe grab this guy from here and place that stone right there. So it's going to take a little bit of artwork. And voila. All right. And so I just go along that top edge and just sort of build in everything so that using the clone brush, so I kill off that edge. Okay, so that seam just totally goes away. And so that's by manipulating and building new stones. Maybe I can blend from this stone to that stone. Okay, so a lot of it is what you can get away with. Now, the reason I didn't resize it yet is, hey, maybe what I want to do is pop over to the original texture. I have a bunch of stones here that I'm not using, right? So that up here I didn't select these guys. So I'll do a copy here, paste in. Okay, so I do a paste, and then what I can do is place these guys right along that edge, right? And I'm going to crudely chop out a bunch here just to sort of speed this up. Okay, and so then I can go through and let's see. I sometimes just toss a temporary layer in between. And it doesn't matter what color it is, just so we can sort of see what's going on. Obviously, we're not going to keep that, but just make your work life easier. Okay, so small little crash there, but I've just painted in a bunch of this. And so it's just a matter of going through and hiding, covering up that seam with some of the extra data you have from the same photo. And, I take that off and it looks pretty close. I'm not super happy with the blending there, but you get the idea. So it's a matter of just grabbing some logical pieces for each direction and slowly working and covering up that seam. And this is the sort of thing that you toss in your library of things so that later on you just have these unique files that you can drag out that no one else has, and it gives your works that unique look. All right, and you can also buy in some. That's another way to get some of this done. But it's a lot of times your customers want something custom, and so you need to do it a custom fit for whatever their site is. But for the standard stuff, yeah, this is where you just buy a disc full of them and check them, make sure they're okay, and it's amazing what crap is sold on the internet. Yeah, so you have to hide the seams of the part you've pasted in, and hide the seams of the overlap. So I'm going to pause the recording and finish this up. Okay, so this is looking fairly decent. Because of these deep shadows here, I probably won't be able to flip it upside down. So it means that it's a one-directional tileable texture. And so now I just go to my image size and I say, hey, this guy should be 256 by 256 at 72 dpi. It's whatever you happen to need. Yes. Okay. And so there we go. And all right, maybe that's a little too small. Image size 72, 72, and 512, 512. Okay. Because I can always, whenever I do decide I'm going to use this, I can take it down. And yeah, I'm still starting to see a little bit of a seam there. Just quickly take that out. Put, just bring that guy over a bit, and that pretty much does it. Yeah, just those hard seams you got to get rid of. Okay, and there we go. So there we have our tileable texture. We save it and pop over to Maya. Okay, so here in Maya, I have just a cylinder to represent a tower or whatever I'm going to brick with this. I've given it the number of divisions, and I've kept the polygons very square. So that's the thing. You're poly heavy with this technique because everything is extremely square there. But it's really as simple at this point of going to your UV texture editor. Okay, and there's the default cylinder, which is horrible, of course. And we just go to Unitize, and voila. We can see how good or bad my texturing was. Okay, so there I have all that detailed texture map with one copy per the polygon face. So I have all that detail there, okay, for the same size map. And so I can try different size maps and see, if I'm going to see it this far back, that's probably way too much detail. But if if your characters are going to get, if the camera's going to get really close to it, maybe you'd need something that heavy. Okay, so that's that guy. Then, if you want to get a bit more advanced, what you can do. Okay, so here I have a gravel texture. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to copy a little section off over here. As you see, this is in a corner. Okay, I've put the little bush here in the corner, and that's key to my strategy. All right, and so I'm going to copy that section, do a new square, V, E. So Command V to paste it in, Command E to flatten it down, and then what I'll do is I will grab a section over here somewhere. All right, that looks pretty good. Copy that, paste this guy in. All right, and let's see, do I need to offset this? Yes, so what I'm looking to do here is I'm going to need to make a texture that's tileable the same way all the way around. All right, so we want to make it different, but it has to match up perfectly on each side of this. Okay, so I'll just split this guy down the middle. This is the second layer. Okay, and actually X and V that. Slide him over directly. Slide the lower guy over. to that side. So now we know they match up. Okay, I'll combine those two layers, and then I will duplicate the layer and rotate it. All right, and let's see, edit, select all, edit, and rotate. Transform. Okay, so I've now rotated it, and it's so now we know it's going to match up both ways. I got my corners to deal with, but I just slowly go through and erase out using the eraser tool. Let's save this and Photoshop, gravel. Okay, and so, and now we just do a little bit of eraser work, just taking out little bits of these guys. So just, okay, so we know the ends are going to blend. I may want to do my trick of putting in that layer down below so I can have it turned on. I can have that bottom guy turned on and sort of, you know, use that as one of the factors as I'm making my decisions. So, you know, what I'll do here is I'll take a little bit more off there, you know, and bring this guy in a bit more. So take down his size. Okay. And okay, so as you see, I've gone around, I've made different decisions and taken out different stones to hide the fact of what I'm doing from the audience. Okay, and I'll just flatten this. Save it first, and let's see. Okay, so here in Maya, I've loaded it in. Okay, so I just have it on a shader, and I have a piece of geometry that, you know, I've sort of tweaked out a little bit, so it has a tiny amount of personality to it. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we'll just go over here to our UV texture editor. And as you see, it's across all of the stock UVs now. And so I'll just do that unitize, and you go, okay, well, that's you know, pretty straightforward there. And then what I'll do is I just select a few of these guys. I'm going to select them with faces just because I can sort of do it fast here. And so I'm just going to go and grab some of these guys randomly. I tend to start off by doing these things randomly, and then we'll go through and think about it a bit deeper and clean stuff up. But yeah, so if I'm just grabbing these guys out randomly like that, so as you see, I'm not getting anyone who's connected to each other. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. I pop back over here to my UV texture editor, select their UVs, and then I rotate the UVs, okay, by 90 degrees. So if we go back to here, as you can see, I now have, okay, in this place, I have two red squares next to each other. I have a, you know, so the fact that I go through and just grab these guys and rotate some of them so that, you know, and because we built the texture in that way that it will match up, all right, no matter what we do for rotations, okay, we should have a lot of variations on the patterns that can come up, right? So, so we just want to have the maximum number of, variety, as much variety as possible here. And it's not hard work, it's just a little bit of work there. And if I painted the texture a bit better, it would repeat a bit nicer. Okay, but so as you see, you can then use the same texture again and again and again, but at each corner you have different ones joining up. And if you build it just right so that you can't see the seam in any direction, all right, you have a huge bang for your buck. So hope that helps. Have fun.